Hey, hello everyone. It's probably too dark to have my camera on. It's 20 past 6 in the morning, Sunday morning here in the UK. And it's light outside. I don't know why it's so dark in here. It will lighten up a bit if I do that, but then it goes dark again. So who knows? I'm going to turn my camera off in a minute anyway. I'm just saying hello. But what we're going to do in this live is talk about Letecia Stauch. I've watched every minute of the trial so far. We've done 8 days, so it's had 2 weeks because they don't do Thursdays because the judge has got other commitments on Thursdays. So we've done 8 days. I've sat through every single minute, and I just have this visceral response, like this hatred. Like when I watch a trial normally, like when I watched the Murdoch trial, I thought Alex was guilty, right? I did. But I was able to listen to the testimony and think, all right, let's look at this in a more objective manner. But Letecia, I just can't do that with her. She's just a liar. She is out of control, laughingstock. She is. She is. But what I am dying to hear is the psychological stuff. Because I'm a psychologist, I worked in psychology for over 20 years. I'm waiting for the psychology stuff to come up. I mean, they've got to go, they've got to lay the foundations. They've got to go through everything as if this was a regular trial, because she's pled guilty by reason of insanity, or not guilty rather, by reason of insanity. So that plea is, she's not saying she didn't do it. She's saying she did it, but she was insane when she did it. But the prosecution still has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that she did do it, because there's always that risk. Like legally, they've got to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that she did it. But because there's always that risk that at some point in the future, she could come along and appeal. If she's found guilty, she could come along and appeal and say, yeah, I pled not guilty by reason of insanity because I was insane. So they've got to prove that she did it. So they're laying all the foundations. They're going through all of the evidence that proves that she did it. And then it's the prosecution's burden of proof that she was sane. If you've been following the trial very closely, you'll know all this anyway. I'm just saying this for the people who perhaps haven't been saying it, been watching it and, listening to it so closely. But I just can't with her. I just can't. I can't be objective. So I'm sitting there fuming, like angry, and that's why I've not done so much on her trial. I've not done as much so far as I intended to, because I can't do it objectively. I just can't. It's just this visceral response. But something very interesting was said right at the beginning of day 8, so this Friday, that I want to talk about. So I'm just going to let people come in. I know it's a very bad time, like 6:26 now in the AM for me in the UK. So Sunday morning, I don't think a lot of my UK people are going to be up. But some of you maybe down under, it's a good time for you guys. It's going to be like, what, 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the PM where you are down under. And then some of my West Coast peeps might be up as well. So I'm guessing most people will watch this on the replay, and that's okay. That's okay. I don't take my lives down. They all stay up. So if you're catching this on the replay, hello, hello. RZTV, I haven't seen her in the chat. Maybe she's asleep. But she sent me a parcel, a big package of a bunch of stuff. And she sent me a bunch of emails. And what I could gather from them was that the parcel had been rerouted back to the US. But it turned up. It turned up. So I don't know what was going on. But yeah, she sent me a bunch of stuff. So I've got a mug, stay positive. She sent me some vouchers. She sent me some hats, some summer hats, which is great. A little thing to put on your wall. Always leave paw prints on our hearts. She sent me a mouse mat. Oh my word, which is one of my sayings. Oh my word. And I can't stop saying that about Letecia. So yeah, RZTV, if you see this, it turned up about 3-4 days ago. I don't know. I can't tell you what's going on with the post, but I received it safely, so that's good. I think with PO boxes, like they sit in the sorting office for ages before they reroute it back to my address, because you have the option with a PO box, you may or may not know, to go and pick it up at the sorting place, or to have it rerouted and delivered to your address. Well, I'm lazy, so I have it rerouted to my address. So it probably takes longer because it's got to get its way to the UK, and then it's got to be sorted to be rerouted back to me, back to my address. So I can only imagine that when there's a delay, it's something like that, like it's sitting there on a shelf or something, waiting to be rerouted. But it turned up, so thank you so much. Yeah, a whole bunch of stuff. That's just the stuff that I've got to hand. So, all right, let's see who's in the house. Just give people a bit of a chance to come in. Trixie Star, hello, hello. Hello, hello. Joyce, Dogs with Jobs, Starkey Rottweilers. I'll make the live as my AFL match is starting soon. Likely pop in and out. Good stuff. Lindsay. Chris Topper. What else have we got? Jennifer. Rocky Mountain Barn. Die Soda Bitch. Oh, Diet Soda. Diet Soda Bitch. I've still not been to the opticians to get new glasses. So I'm still struggling to read people's names. Not that glasses help very much anyway. Laughing Stock. Late Night Live. Well, it's a very early morning live for me here. R. Leonard, Moonlight View, Merity, VTAC, Ali, Mums Amore, Rowdy, Claya, Nurse Fifi, Winoa, Kim, Ray, Just Me, JB, Jack, Laced in Trains, hello, Dina, hello. It's 12:22 in the PM here. Oh, that's good. I think you mean 12:22 AM, actually, if you're in Texas. But anyway, right, let's get into this. So the thing that it was right at the beginning, like before the jury came in, and the attorneys wanted to have a quick chat with the judge, who's great. I love that judge, Judge Werner. I love him. He's almost as good as Judge Newman from the Murdoch trial. He's not taking any nonsense, which is good. But yeah, right at the beginning. So I'm going to play you it. It's only like literally 2 minutes right at the beginning. So I'm guessing a lot of people missed it. But because I'm like tuned in, waiting so keenly for the psychology stuff, then it really got me really looking forward to it. He does have a radio voice, yeah. He's like, sounds like a radio announcer. He's got this really calm, quite deep voice that, yeah, you can just, yeah, you could listen to him on radio, couldn't you? Oh, yeah. She wet her pants in the interview room. It's just disgusting. Why she's putting the family through this? She should just do the decent thing and plead guilty. She's lying. I just can't with her. I just can't. I could sit here and say nothing except I just can't. I just want to grab her and smack her around, you know. She's just, she is nasty. She's nasty, Gavel Geek. She is. No, zero decency. Absolutely. Zero decency. Where is it? There we go. Zero decency. And she's just making a mockery. She's making a mockery. Like doing the devil horns, you know, this. Devil horns. And, you know, this. And just, why? Why? It's just so childish and horrible. But I'm going to play this. Literally 2 minutes right at the beginning of the trial on Friday. So I'm just playing this from Law and Crime. There's a bunch of channels, a whole bunch of channels streaming it. I've been listening to it on Sleuth Mom's channel because I like what she does in the breaks. She's nice and calm, and so I've been watching it on her channel. But there's a whole bunch of channels that are covering it. I haven't been, because I've just been watching it as a viewer, fuming. But when it comes to the psychology stuff, I think I will stream some of that live, so that I can interject in the breaks. I haven't fully decided that I'm going to do that yet, but that's kind of where I'm at with it. So, you know, I want to react to that psychology testimony as quickly as possible. Devil in action. That is perfect. Yeah, she is. Yeah, she has been evaluated. Yeah. I'm in two minds about Harley. Because she was 17 at the time, so technically still a minor, but old enough to have a full understanding what was going on. She's not a little kid. And I'm in two minds as to, I kind of think she must have had some idea of what was going on, you know, in that road trip that they did, you know, to Florida and then to South Carolina, and Gannon in the suitcase. I mean, surely there would have been some kind of smell or bodily fluids emanating from that suitcase. I don't know. And then again, I think, well, if Harley did know, maybe they have granted her immunity so that she'll speak. Or maybe they're not attributing any guilt to her because she was a minor and because she was basically controlled by Letecia. I mean, you know, put yourself into the shoes of the 17-year-old daughter of somebody that you know has committed a heinous murder. You know, there's got to be fear connected to that. So I kind of think she must have had some idea of what was going on, but in a very, very, very difficult position. Very difficult position. I bet she was scared. Well, Harley have to testify. She's on the witness list, so it's up to the attorneys as to whether they call her. Yes, he has. He has. I think the family went out when they showed the autopsy photos, which were absolutely brutal. But I'm glad they showed them. I'm glad they showed them to the jury. Yes, that's kind of where I am with it. Yeah, that she knew something, but she was being controlled and she was scared. And who wouldn't be? Who wouldn't be? Because, you know, you kind of think, is it me next? Oh, you didn't get the notification. I know, I don't get notifications either for stuff that I watch. It's crazy. Exactly. Exactly. How would you know what to do at that age when you're scared? Yeah, I think she was just doing what she was told. It is an incredibly difficult situation. Like, she had no regard for her own daughter. Yeah. I don't know whether the attorneys are going to go there, though, because it muddies the water, doesn't it? Like, if they start, because the defense on cross-examination have been saying little things about Harley. I did a video last week that, you know, are they going to try and twist it to turn it that Harley had this big involvement and Letecia should be in some way considered more leniently because maybe she was covering up for what her daughter did. You know, there's always that potential that the defense could try and twist something of that kind. Maybe the defense will call her. Maybe the prosecution won't call her and the defense will. We just don't know yet. You know, all we know is that she's on the list. They could call her. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And look at what happened to Tylee in the Valor case. Like, she must have known what was going on. She must have had some inkling of what was going on. Like, she was there when Charles Valor was shot, wasn't she? So she would have known. Maybe that's why they had to get rid of her, because she knew too much. Exactly. Buster Murdoch, another one. I mean, Buster was an adult, but still, you know, the surviving son of a family murderer. How do you handle that? Even as an adult, how do you handle that? So yeah, I'll be very interested to see what they do about Harley. But I think the prosecution will play any involvement that Harley had. I think they'll play it down. They want to focus it squarely on Letecia, and it should be. It should be. You think Letecia's attorney hates her? They're probably thinking, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? I mean, can you imagine what she's like with them in, you know, behind closed doors? I bet she's horrible. She's horrible. And they'll know she's lying. I'm pretty sure of it. Anyway, I'm going to play this. All right. I'm going to mute out and play this. It's only a couple of minutes. So playing this from Law and Crime Network. I'll put the link to this in the chat as well. And this is from day 8. So Friday. Right at the beginning. So some people might have missed this. But I'm going to mute out now and play this. Just give it a minute to come on. Hold on, I'll move it forward a little.
Questionnaire that people This article that was relied upon evidently by
I haven't had a chance to talk to Dr. Torres.
I think I'm just gonna let it play in its own right, because they came on a bit early. Like they meant to start at 9. Here we go. Here we go.
Good morning.
Last night, the council filed an SDT with regards to raw data of an MMPI-2 that Dr. Torres may be in possession of. It's my understanding that we already dealt with that issue as far as discovery goes. It was real clear, at least my recollection is, that the court said that information could be transferred to experts for evaluation. And so at this time, we're asking that SDT be quashed. I haven't had a chance to talk to Dr. Torres about this, but I'm assuming the state hospital's position has not changed, that they're not going to want to disseminate the raw data from psychological testing.
As you know, let me see, but I don't think I can get it yet.
I follow the history, and I can get what exactly.
Okay, tell me what's going on.
So, Your Honor, I had requested and Dr. Gray provided, as you remember before, the literature that they were basing some of their diagnoses on, and specifically, they had one article, and I can file this over. We can supplement it to the court. They provided one article specifically dealing with the MMP2, and that certain scores on that, and the article says which ones that you're looking at are some generally dissociative identity disorder is hard to score on the MMP2. This article that was relied upon evidently by Dr. Gray, and he said primarily in this, has certain scores though on it that are higher for people that they believe are malingering. And so all I'm asking, I'm not asking for all of the raw data. I'm asking strictly for the raw data on the MMP2, which is basically, it's just a multiple choice questionnaire that people fill out and then it scores a certain way. The reason I am asking for this raw data is just for cross-examination purposes. And so they're saying it's scored a separate way. This is not anything that's copyrighted. This is not all of the raw data. This is something very specific in relation to an article that they gave that said her scores don't fit more in what this article says will be malingering. And so what I want just is to have that raw data so I can just go through more than likely, and I have a social worker who knows who has some experience in scoring it and so forth, and to look over that exact raw data in an effort for cross-examination.
Can you point to the part in Dr. Gray's report that you're referring to? I mean, what I can, says?
Yes, I don't have it in front of me, but I can bring that over for the lunch, and also the article that he referred to on that, and then I can give that to the court. And so, like I said, I understand the general thing with the raw data needs to go between the experts, but this is something that's very specific, and also this is not something that I don't believe is copyrighted or anything like that. So like some of the structured interviews, I understand there's some copyright and there's some issues why they don't want the raw data on the structured interviews. This is strictly a multiple choice questionnaire. And like I said, I'll bring all that for the court to be able to look at.
Yeah, if you can do that, because I would agree. It sounds like what you're asking for is what article was it that he was relying upon that said that perhaps the MMPI-2 may not be applicable, and you want to see that article so that you can.
So let me rephrase.
Okay.
I have that article.
Okay.
That article says that certain questions on the MMP2, if answered in this way, indicate malingering. Other answers on this indicate a more legitimate dissociative identity disorder. And the article actually says what group of questions they're referring to that indicate this one way or the other. And Dr. Gray said he relied upon that article in scoring the MMP2 to come to his conclusions. And so I'll bring you Dr. Gray's report where he says that.
Bring me the report
and the article.
Yep.
And then so Your Honor can see that. Yes, sir. That'll work.
Because we're not getting to Dr. Gray today, so
no. But this next week, and I put the SDT for Monday. I don't necessarily need it on Monday. I just picked a date that seemed like it would work.
Okay.
But I'm fine, and we can move that down once the court court wants to look at it over the weekend, make a decision.
Yep.
I don't think we're gonna get to them even next week, and so if I could, even like if I could have that stuff by Thursday, if the court
That's fine.
thinks it's appropriate, that would be totally fine.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else that we need to address?
Not by people there, thanks.
Okay, so I thought that was really intriguing. I'd like to know who Dr. Gray is that they're talking about, because there's several Dr. Grays who are psychologists. So I need to know which Dr. Gray the prosecution want to call. But it's the MMPI2 that I want to talk about. Thank you, Diane, for the $2.99. That's very kind of you. And I think I had another donation as well. I did. Thank you so much for the $1.99. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it is too bad she can't get the death penalty. I know. I know. She's been making hand gestures towards the jury, towards the witnesses, towards the Gannon's family. She's just been just incredibly disrespectful. I know. I mean, how much of her background and her work life is true? I mean, is she really a doctor? Does she really have a doctorate in education? Or is she just lying? Is she just lying? Yeah, they're asleep. They got up at 5:20, wanted their breakfast, had their breakfast earlier, like 2 hours earlier than they normally have it, and then went back to sleep. But I was awake by then. I wish they would. I wish they would. Yeah. Yeah, we're going to talk about the MMPI2. So, first of all, what is malingering? I think is important to, you know, just to give a definition of. So malingering is pretending to have an illness in order to get benefits. So you might fake an illness to get off work, or you might fake a mental disorder to enable yourself to plead not guilty by reason of insanity. There's nothing that I've seen so far indicates that Letecia is insane. Absolutely nothing so far in this trial. Whether or not she has DID becomes a moot point, to be honest, because, you know, you could have DID, dissociative identity disorder, and not be insane. DID is pretty rare as a diagnosis anyway, but there are some people who have DID and who live perfectly normal, functional lives, and they're able to, you know, they've got strategies and things that help them through the periods where they dissociate. So even if you say that you've got DID and you were in some form of alternate personality when you committed a heinous crime, well, was your alternate personality that was in control, was that person, that persona, were they insane? Well, no. So it's a stupid thing to claim. I mean, I think, just personally speaking, I think she's got a personality disorder. But if you look at the law in Colorado, having a personality disorder doesn't allow you to plead not guilty by reason of insanity. So she's chosen DID because that is one of the disorders where you could be classed as insane under the law. What we're talking about here, we throw the, oh, she's insane or he's insane. We throw that out just in everyday language. But criminally insane is that you did not know what you were doing at the time. You were so psychotic at the time, you'd lost all grips with reality. And that's just not Letecia. She knew exactly what she was doing. And nothing so far in the 8 days that I've sat through has led me to believe otherwise. And I know I said at the beginning of this stream that I can't be objective with her, but still, if there was something that cropped up that made me doubt, I would say so. I would say, oh, hold on a minute, maybe we should look at this a little bit closer. But I haven't seen that. I have not seen that so far. But we've got a long way to go yet. So, you know, you never know. But I don't think DID, I don't think that even if she has it, I don't think that that tells me that she was insane. It really doesn't. Thank you, Soul for Music, for the $4.99. Profile picture is blue lights for Gannon on my house. Ah, it's absolutely dreadful. I mean, an 11-year-old boy. What did he do? What did he do that put her in such a rage? Because that's what she was. She was enraged. She was filled with hatred. She was filled with hatred, not insanity. And yeah, I'd love to see the jury's faces. I'd love to see how they react to the nonsense that she puts forward. I think they've got her sussed. But the MMPI2, so it seems that Letecia, well, I mean, we know that she's been evaluated. Gannon's little sister, Lena, she came home. So when they arrived back at the house, what was that? Something past 2 in the PM. And then Lena arrived home at something past 3. So there was an hour between Letecia and Gannon arriving home and Lena arriving home from school. But Letecia wouldn't let her in. Letecia told us go and play outside. And there is CCTV of Lena in the street playing on her bike. And she was only 8, an 8-year-old at the time. So, yeah, she did come home, but Gannon probably had already been murdered by then. But she wasn't allowed in the house. And then Harley came home. Harley's Letecia's daughter from her previous marriage. She came home at about 4:30. And then she was sent out to buy cleaning supplies. But I think at that time, Harley didn't know what was going on. Because of the candle incident the night before, she was probably told, you know, go and buy some cleaning supplies so I can sort out the candle. I mean, I've just been sitting here thinking, well, what is her motive? Why did she hate him so much? And Letecia's brother, when he took the stand, if you saw that testimony, that was interesting. He said that she doesn't have any mental disorders that he knows of, but she is OCD, obsessive compulsive. So was it Gannon's stomach issue and her OCD that put her in some kind of rage? But it was a sustained attack. You know, if you've listened to what she did, it's a sustained attack. I mean, she used multiple ways to harm him. You know, I think she burned him on purpose. I really do. Having listened to and seen the pictures of where the wax was, where the candle was, what kind of candle it was. And it was one of those safety candles. You know, the not like a big long candle. I was imagining like a big long candle that, yeah, possibly if it fell over, the flame is going to be right there and it's going to set something on fire. But it's one of those safety candles. It's like in a glass container. And it's safety. I've got some candles like that. And if you knock one over, unless there's something right there that could possibly set on fire, it's just going to go out. It's just going to put itself out. I can't see how Gannon knocking over that candle could set a fire so hot that it burned a carpet. Aren't carpets flame retardant these days? I mean, and then Gannon's arms, you know, at the autopsy, the decomp on his skin was such that the medical examiner couldn't see the burns, which makes sense because he'd been dead for over a month by the time, nearly 2 months. And he'd been in a suitcase and then for part of that time in water. So yes, there is going to be decomp on the skin. So the way that Letecia describes it is that he was burned down the inside of his arms. Now, how do you, from a little candle, a small candle, like one of the police officers held it up, it was just a small candle. Have I got one? No, I've not got one in this room about the same size. I think she threw it at him and he put his hands up like that to defend himself. And that's how he got burnt. Because it was on the inside of his arms. Well, if you're asleep on the couch and you accidentally knock a candle over, how can you get burned down the inside of your arms? You don't, do you? So that was on the Sunday night, allegedly. And then he had hydrocodone in his system. And Al Stauch said that they did have some hydrocodone in the house because of an injury he had. So they did have some hydrocodone pills in the house. So she tried to drug him. So we don't know the amount of hydrocodone that they found in his liver, but it must have been a substantial amount. And then 4 blunt force injuries to his head, one of which fractured his skull. 18 sharp force wounds, and these were just what could be seen on autopsy. Because of the decomp, there could have been more wounds that she'd inflicted on him that weren't possible to see by that time. And then she'd fired 3 shots from a 9mm gun, one of which went into his jaw and went back into his head. So you've got burning, drugging, blunt force trauma, sharp force trauma, and gunshots. 5 ways. 5 ways that she used to kill him. Exactly, she shot him. Any one of those could have killed him. Any one of those. Like, the house could have, once there's a, you know, it's difficult for a candle to cause a fire, but once it does, then she could have had the house on fire. The escalation is horrifying, absolutely. Absolutely horrifying. Then she drugged him. So was that to try to, you know, send him into a permanent sleep, and she just didn't give him enough? Then we don't know whether the blunt force trauma or the sharp force injuries came first. We don't know what implement she used for those things. So, I don't know, things that she had to hand, I don't know. And then she shot him. I just can't with her. I just can't. This is why I'm struggling to do live streams about her, because I just end up ranting like I'm doing now. And the gaslighting. There wasn't just physical trauma, there was psychological trauma. Here comes a troll. Where's that? I've lost it. Good. Scissors in the dishwasher. Yeah, I clocked that. Scissors, though. I mean, I guess if they're big scissors, I guess they could give Because people have been saying that it was a box cutter because she was trying to use a box cutter. I think we call them Stanley knives in the UK. She was trying to use that to cut the carpet out. So that could have been in the room. But some of the injuries were so deep. I don't think a box cutter or a Stanley knife would give a wound that was that deep. Like some of the wounds have gone down to the bone. So scissors, yeah, could have been scissors. Could have been something. She talked about getting tools out of the garage to help her cut the carpet out. So there could have been tools in the room. Any number of like woodworking tools could have been used. Yeah, she had scars on her hands. She had damage to her hands. Yeah. Thank you so much. Treats for Miss Tillington and Miss Cassie Springer. Thank you, Chris. That's very kind of you. Yeah, possibly. Possibly. Because it was weird, wasn't it? The way that she described, like, getting them out, getting Lena out when there was a fire. And then she went back for Gannon. That was bizarre, the way she described that. So, possibly. She gave him hydrocodone to knock him out. And then she tried to set the house on fire. Maybe. And it all went wrong. She just wasn't a very good killer. Maybe. Maybe. I could go with that. I mean, there's some things that we'll probably never know. Because even if at some point in the future, you know, she does this tell-all expose of her life, how do we know that she's telling the truth? She's told so many lies. You know, how do we know? They are super sharp, but would they give a wound so deep that it would go down to the bone? I mean, it's possible that she used more than one sharp force tool. It's possible because the decomp was such that some of the wounds probably didn't look like they did originally. So she could have started with a Stanley knife and then picked up scissors. So she could have used two. She was just in a rage. But nothing is telling me that she was insane. She was enraged, but being enraged isn't the definition of legal insanity, in my opinion. Yeah, then she said she jumped on him. Yeah. Were there any tools missing? We don't know. We don't know. The scissors were in the dishwasher, and then the box cutter's never been found, as far as I know. So I don't know whether there was any other tools missing. I mean, I've got a bunch of tools in my shed. And if someone broke into my shed and then used a tool to commit a crime, I'm not sure that I could tell you, like, how many, like, sharp, you know, how many tools I've got in that shed that could cause a sharp force injury. I'm not sure that I could pick one out and say that's missing. Like a hammer, I would know. My spade's already missing. And I know a spade's not a sharp force injury maker, but just saying. I went in my shed the other day looking for my spade, and then I remember I lent it to someone like last summer, and it's not been returned. So I missed that. But tools like chisels and, you know, things that you would use to cut stuff, I'm not sure I would miss one of those things. I've got a bunch of different scissors and chisels and stuff. Anyway, let's get back to this. So the MMPI, What screen am I on? The MMPI. So it's the Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory Test. And you can't do this online. It's a clinical assessment tool. So every time someone puts it online, it gets taken off. Like I found a link to it and thought, oh, there somebody's like illegally put it on. Let's just have a look. And it had already been taken down. But there are tests that look like it that you can take online. So it's not one of these fun, you know, pop quizzes, you know, test what disorder do I have, or test your own personality. It's not one of those. It's a clinically used tool to diagnose some mental disorders. And just doing the MMPI on its own doesn't diagnose a mental disorder. Yeah. Oh yeah, we all know that. We all know that video. Yeah, completely gaslighted Gannon in that. And poor Gannon saying, I'm just worried about my burns. I mean, it's just heartbreaking. So yeah, I think we all know that video. Yeah, so there's various versions of the MMPI as well. Like the first version was developed in the 1940s, but they specifically talked about the MMPI 2. So we can talk a little bit about that. Can I play the video on here? I'm not going to play the video on here. I've played it in a previous live. Do you think she's the one who sent the messages about Bath? Yes. Yeah. I think the messages that were sent from Gannon's phone were her. Or it could have been Gannon talking completely innocently. But no, I think those messages came from her. I think she was just in a rage. She was doing everything she could to berate him and to make him look like some kind of adolescent drug addict. But so what is this test? What does the MMPI measure? And I'm reading this from Psych Central because it's easy to understand. So all about the MMPI personality test. So learn all about the MMPI. The Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory is one of the most commonly used psychological tests in the United States. Who've we got? Sleuthing Sandals, member for 11 months. You're very welcome. Have I had any other member messages? Because they don't come up on StreamYard. Hey, Beach Charmer. Welcome to memberships. I missed that earlier. Welcome to the Secret Agents Club. I'm going to do a members live. I know I keep saying that and then don't do it, but I am going to do another members live. Maybe later today I could do it, or maybe not. I'll see. I'll see how I feel. Anyway, so learn about the MMPI, one of the most commonly used psychological tests in the United States, but it's not a test that you can do yourself online. It's a clinical assessment tool. Contains a variety of true or false questions that are scored on a scale used to describe a person's mental processes and how they manage stress. It's primarily used in a clinical setting to help mental health professionals assess and diagnose mental health conditions such as schizophrenia, depression, and anxiety. However, it's not the only tool that they would use. They wouldn't give you a personality test and then diagnose you just from that alone. They do structured interviews. They do a number of assessments. But what the attorney wants, what the prosecutor wants, is the raw data from the MMPI 2. because there's some indication that some of these questions that are measured on the MMPI-2 indicate malingering. And there are some scales on that that could be interpreted as lie scales or malingering scales. So it's really good that the prosecutor has picked up on that, because this is very technical stuff. But if there is evidence that a psychologist or a psychiatrist could testify to as an expert witness that the way she scored on the MMPI-2 indicates that she is a liar, and she doesn't actually have a mental disorder at all. Can you time out commentator privilege, please? Why? What are they saying? Discriminates against poor people. Well, you're under no obligation to become a member. So, Trixie Star's already got it. You're under no obligation to become a member, so go away. All right. Where am I? Got too many windows open. Just let me close a window or two here. All right. Lawyers also use the MMPI as forensic evidence in clinical defense and custody disputes, or, as the prosecutors are going to do here, hopefully, prove that Letecia doesn't have a mental disorder at all and she's just a malingerer. So the first version of this was published in 1942, but the most commonly used one is the MMPI-2. That's what they were talking about. So it's basically the second version. So the MMPI-1 came out in the 1940s, and then it was updated in 1989. And that a variation of it is still used. Recently, actually, released in 2020, is the MMPI-3, but most clinicians are still using the MMPI-2. So it contains, so the full version of it, there are short forms of it. There are shorter forms for adolescents, but Letecia would have been given this one, like the standard adult version. That's the one that's used by most clinicians. So it contains 567 true or false questions and takes 60 to 90 minutes to complete. And it's got various groups of questions in it that measure someone's tendency towards having a certain mental disorder, or that you are potentially lying, that you're potentially making it up. So, as I said, part of a psychological evaluation, but it's not the only evaluation that will be done. This is just part of a set of tools that clinicians can use. So it has built-in clinical scales that describe a person's psychological processes and how they respond to stress. Each scale or group of questions, unknown to the test taker, are indicators of a certain disorder or not. And this is what the prosecutor was talking about, I think, that the MMPI also has a built-in validity scale designed to identify how a person approaches the test, such as whether they attempted to present themselves differently from how they actually view themselves. So that could indicate lying, and in this context could indicate that they're trying to fake a mental disorder, i.e. that they are malingering. So it's great. I pricked up my ears and thought, yes, when I heard the prosecutor talking about this, and that they've got someone who will testify that her scores might indicate malingering, I thought, yes, not only have they got her on the nonsense that she did, they've also got her, or potentially got her, as a malingerer, which is fantastic. So there's 10 clinical scales in the MMPI-2, which is still the most widely used version, as I said. These scales overlap. So a scale is a group of questions. High scores point to a high risk of having this certain mental disorder. So hypochondria. So are you exaggerating concern over your health? Depression, hysteria. So that's kind of like neuroticism. Psychopathic deviant. These scales point to difficulty with family and authority figures. Also gauges feelings of alienation from self and society, as well as boredom. So I'd be interested to know what her scores were on this. Masculinity and femininity, whether the person abides by stereotypical masculine and feminine values and roles. So I'm not particularly interested in scores on that. Paranoia, grandiose thinking, suspicion towards other people, and rigid thinking. I'd be interested in scores on that. Psychasthenia gauges a person's ability to resist certain thoughts or behaviors. So it can identify abnormal fears, self-criticism, and concentration difficulty. I'd be interested in her scores on that. Schizophrenia identifies tendencies towards bizarre thoughts and social alienation. I'd be interested in her scores on that. I'm actually surprised, if you're faking a mental disorder, I'm surprised she didn't use schizophrenia rather than DID. Because schizophrenia, if you have a complete psychotic break as a schizophrenic, then potentially you could be legally insane. So maybe she made a mistake. Maybe she should have faked schizophrenia rather than DID. There's a reason why she chose DID, in my opinion. There's a reason why she chose DID as her insanity defense, but we don't know it yet. Hypomania, so overactivity, expressed as excitement, elevated mood, people in a manic state. Again, she could have picked mania, because if you go through hypomania and then into full-blown mania, you become psychotic. So I'm interested as to why she didn't choose that. Perhaps some of these things don't stand up in a court of law. I think she's researched DID. I do. I really do. I think she's researched DID and she's worked out how she can appear to have alternate personalities. Has DID been completely debunked by the clinical psychology community? No. It's a true mental disorder. It's in the DSM-5. There's a whole bunch of dissociative disorders that are diagnosable under the DSM-5. So no, it's a real disorder, but it is one that is relatively easy to fake. You know, if you do something stupid, you could say, oh, it was my alter that did it. So there's a lot of faking that goes on with DID. Some of the channels that you see on YouTube where they're switching personalities, I don't believe them for 1 second. But dissociative disorders are truly horrific unless they are controlled, and they are very real. So DID actually exists. Don't go away from this thinking that DID doesn't exist. No, dissociative disorders are real. But it doesn't mean that you're insane. Even if you are diagnosed in in a state of uncontrolled dissociation, it still does not mean that you are insane. It could be that you completely lost grip with reality, and that your alternate personality that you were in when you committed a crime was insane, but it doesn't mean it's automatically. So not only do the defense have to show that she has DID, they also have to show that she was insane, that this alternate personality that was in was insane. And nothing shows me, not one piece of information that's come out in the trial so far tells me that she was insane. The amount of planning, the amount of different ways that she used to hurt Gannon, and the ways that she covered up and the ways that she lied, what we've seen in the interviews, that 4-hour interview that she had, where she wet her pants, allegedly, stuffing paper towels down her pants. This is not insane. This is someone who is evil. I haven't seen signs of it in her, though, have you, Michelle? No, I haven't. I don't think she's got DID. But even if she did, this is what I'm saying, even if the defense can prove that she's got DID in a way that convinces me she's got DID, it still doesn't mean she's insane, or she was insane at the time that she murdered Gannon. But there's nothing that shows me that she has DID. Full stop. How long can a person remain DID because she was on the go for days? Some people do switch for days. But this didn't just go on for days, it went on for weeks. Because not only did she go and hide Gannon in Colorado, she then went back to pick him up in the suitcase and then took him to Florida. So no, she's not. She's not got DID. It's very cold, very calculated. The amount of planning, the amount of lies, the way she twisted. Like when she thought the cops were onto her, she changed her story. Do you think she essayed Gannon? I couldn't say whether she did that or not. I mean, obviously the amount of decomp, autopsy wasn't, they weren't able to, horrific to think about, but I don't know. I can't answer that. Yeah, exactly. The whole family said she never acted crazy with multiple personalities. You see, this is the other thing, that with DID, it tends to be family members or work colleagues or friends who notice the changes before you do. Because when you switch into a different personality, generally speaking, you don't know that you've switched. Let's say, for example, I had DID and I switched into a different personality. I switched into Rachel. Michelle wouldn't be aware of what Rachel was doing. Now, that's not always the case. Some people who've learned how to deal with their disorder can have some knowledge of what happened. So Michelle could have some knowledge of what Rachel was doing. But an uncontrolled, like a person who is not controlling their disorder very well, would not know that Michelle had switched into Rachel. So it tends to be, in genuine cases of DID, it tends to be family members or people who know you best that recognize there's a problem before you do. So not one person who knew Letecia has indicated that she ever switched into someone else, or any indication that she was behaving so bizarrely that an alternate personality had taken over. And the ways that she was using other names was because she didn't like her name. So she was using variations of that name on social media because she didn't like her name. So like, if I didn't like the name Michelle, I might use Shell or Shelley or something else. M. Like, a lot of people in my real life call me M, like M. But it could be, you know, if you were just saying M, you could be mistaken to think that my name was Emma or Emily because they were calling me M. So I might put M to denote M for Michelle, and people online assume that I'm called Emma. So I could just let people carry on believing that I was really called Emma because I prefer the name than Michelle. I actually do prefer the name Emma to Michelle, but you know, that's my personal preference. It's not me switching into an alternate personality. It's me having a preference to use a nickname. So she wasn't using variations of a name because that was an alternate personality. She's chosen DID and fitted that with some of the nonsense behaviors that she's done. I think that's the reason why she's chose DID as opposed to something like schizophrenia, because she knew how calculated she'd been. So she's fitted the disorder to her behavior, but the behavior had already happened. Like she fitted, you know, once she realized that the police were searching the house and collecting forensic evidence from the house, she had to think of a reason why there was blood evidence. So then she came up with the Eduardo and this sexual assault. And Eduardo wanted a suitcase, and then Gannon disappeared. She was fitting her lies to the things that were happening right there on the ground. So what she's done since is fitted the way she behaved and all the lies she told. She's fitted DID into that. She's creating a new truth in her mind. She's chosen the disorder to fit the behavior. It's not that the disorder explains the behavior. It's that she's using a fake disorder to explain it. I've had dual personality since I was a young girl, being severely abused by a stepfather, when I had to create several personalities to help cope with the abuse. Yes, that's generally in over 90% of dissociative disorders that could be diagnosed as DID. It has its root in childhood trauma. So I'm really sorry that happened to you, but it's a way, it's an adaptation. We all have the ability to dissociate. Our brains dissociate every single day. But when you're a child and you're going through severe trauma, it's your brain's doing a kindness to you. Your brain is taking you away from that trauma. And it's actually happening to someone else rather than you. So it's an adaptation. It's a way that your brain is kind to you. We all dissociate. Daydreaming's dissociation. I go into daydreams and don't realize, and then someone will go like that, you know, Michelle, because I'm more ADHD than anything. Like, my mind goes off and I'm thinking of other things and I'm not right there. So people do that to me to get me back. But it doesn't mean that I've got a dissociative disorder. I'm just inattentive. So it's a break for your brain. Absolutely. That's a brilliant way to describe it. It's a break for your brain. Yeah. Oh, I've missed that. Yeah. Spotted around town at Easter. Eduardo. Yeah, he was. He really was. Anyway, what else is in this is in this thing. Social introversion. So do you avoid social interactions? I'd probably measure high on that. And then there's these validity scales. Now, this is, I think, what the... Where's that gone? That jumped. I think this is what the attorney wants the raw data of. The validity scales. So the validity scales within this MMPI-2 attempt to identify deceptive or inconsistent test results. So if they have the raw data for that, and it's looked at by a psychiatrist or a psychologist who can identify malingering or lying, I think they've got her, not just on the stuff that she did, but also on the way that she's tried to fake mental illness. So I really hope that the judge lets them have this raw data, and they can cross-examine this psych expert that they're going to bring up on the defense side, but also bring their own psychologist up who can testify to the fact that Letecia's scores basically show that she's a big fat liar. So there are a variety of both intentional and unintentional reasons people might try to present themselves other than what they are. So in Letecia's case, it's to try to get away with murder. So these are just some examples of where the MMPI might have been used, and it indicates deception. So employment screening tends to get treatments, disability, personal injury, court-ordered evaluations, which is what Letecia had, competency hearings, custody proceedings, and unwillingness to cooperate. So, yeah, I think we can take a number of those. Because in her evaluations, she was deemed competent to stand trial. She was deemed sane enough to stand trial. Yeah, demon in disguise. Yeah, she's not got DID, as in the dissociative identity disorder. She's a demon in disguise. Yeah, she absolutely is. Well, she is. It's not body shaming in any way. She's not especially fat, but she's a big liar. She's a big liar. There was a question that I saw. I've lost it now. Yeah, this is the BS detector. It is. So I can't wait. I can't wait for the psychology testimony. I really can't. I did have a question. You got PTSD. And PTSD is really common. Really common. Yeah, that's exactly it. That's what I'm trying to get across. She can't blame her behavior on DID. She can't. Even if she had DID, which I don't believe she has, but even if she had, it still does not prove in any way that she was insane at the time of the murder. It still does not prove that. But I think she's faking the whole thing. Oh, there we go. There's the question. Can the defense call any witness since they said they have none? They can only call the witnesses that they've told the prosecutor and the judge. They can't just randomly pick someone off the street without that being approved. But they have Dr. Dorothy Lewis, who's going to testify on their behalf. Thank you for the $5. That's very kind of you. Thank you so much. The defense said they had no witnesses. Can they change that? Well, we do know that they intend to call Dorothy Lewis. We do know that. But yeah, they can bring a witness, but it has to be approved. It has to be approved by the the other side. They can't just bring someone in that they've not told the court that they're going to bring in. Thank you, Alyssa, for the $2. That's very kind of you. Do we know what they're focusing on next? I did have the witness list, but I don't know where it is. Hold on. I think it's on my other computer. Hold on a minute. Is that it? No, it's on my other computer, I think. I like to be surprised. I don't sit there with a list. I like to be surprised. So I don't know. I don't know what's coming up next. Yeah, I've go back and watch my previous videos. It's all in the Letecia Stauch trial playlist. That's what I've focused on, the psychology angle, because I was a psychologist for over 20 years. I mean, I still am a psychologist, just don't work in psychology anymore. But I've still got my chartership. I've never, like I could go and get a psychology job tomorrow. I'm still qualified and registered and stuff. But I've chosen not to do that job anymore. But that's what interests me so much about Letecia. Yeah, I have. Not as closely as Letecia. I did talk about Lori Vallow in a video a few days ago. But I've not been, I've watched every single minute of Letecia's trial. Whereas Lori's, I'm only going back watching kind of the stuff that really interests me. I'm not following it from every single witness. I probably will at some point go back and watch all of that, but it's just a lot. It's a lot to. I know some people are doing it. There's the West trial as well going on. Like there's 3 trials going on, and I know some people are following all 3 trials, like listening to every single thing. I can't do that. I can't split my brain 3 ways like that. Like I have to focus on one thing at once. I can't multitask. So I'm not following the Vallow trial as much as closely as I would have done had Letecia Stauch not been on at the same time. I find the Stauch case more interesting than the Vallow case, honestly. What got me into missing persons cases? My stepbrother went missing when I was a teenager. So I grew up knowing what it felt like to have that experience. I've told the story a few times now in videos, but yeah, my stepbrother was, I think I was 14, he was 19. I know I was still at school anyway, still at high school, and he had schizophrenia. He was diagnosed with schizophrenia. And he went through a period where they couldn't control his psychotic episodes. And then one day, he just disappeared. He just disappeared. And my parents reported it to the police. So basically, I come from a blended family. Like I have a biological mother, and then I have my dad or my stepdad who brought me up. And my stepdad had 2 sons from a previous marriage. So my stepbrother was my dad's biological son, whereas I was not my dad's biological daughter. So anyway, he was living with us and he went missing, reported him to the police. And this was in the 1980s. So, you know, there was no such thing as mobile phones then. So it wasn't like they could just ping his phone. But they did check his bank, and he'd taken some money out of a bank in the closest town to us. So we knew where to start off. So he was missing it was over 2 weeks. And then it was, we had no idea, nothing, no other indicators. And it was just horrible. It was horrible knowing that he was out there. We didn't know whether we were given hope because he'd taken money out of his bank. So it wasn't like we thought he'd gone off to kill himself somewhere, but he could have, you know, he didn't take his medication with him. He was psychotic. Anything could have happened. He could have harmed himself inadvertently, or he could have harmed someone else. We had no idea. And then 2 weeks later, it was in the middle of the night. My parents were in bed, but I used to stay up all hours like I still do. And the phone rang, the house phone rang. And it was Inverness Police. And Inverness is over 400 miles away from, it's like right at the top of Scotland. And it was this policewoman from Inverness Police, and she said, I've got Ian here. Do you know him? I said, yeah, he's my brother. And she said, how old are you? And I think I said 14. She said, can you get your parents? So I went upstairs and woke my mum and dad up, and they were just crying. My dad was. Anyway, I got on the phone and they explained that they'd picked him up in the middle of Inverness. They thought he was drunk. He was like wandering about in the road. They thought he was drunk. And then when they spoke to him, they realized they were really good cops. They realized that he was psychotic. So they took him to the police station. And then, you know, they did some tapping on their, you know, their systems, and they realized he was a missing person. And there was a phone number for him, so they called. So my mum and dad had to basically drive 400 miles there and then, like they set off there and then to go and pick him up. So in answer to your question, I have that experience of what it's like to have a missing person in the family. And we were really, really lucky, that these cops in Inverness had recognised that he was in trouble, that there was something wrong. And they took the time, like they fed him, they gave him, you know, they just fed him, they looked after him, they gave him a blanket so he could have a sleep, and they were just kind to him. You know, they didn't lock him up as a drunk and then let him go the following morning. They looked after him. They did the right thing. So I've got a total amount I've got a lot of respect for the police. I mean, they make mistakes. They absolutely do. But I understand what it's like to have a missing person. And that's why I do gravitate towards missing persons cases. It's not the only reason. I mean, I just find them interesting, and I want to, I feel with missing people, you can actually make a difference. You know, when it's a murder and it's very forensic, as a member of the public, you can't really make that big of a difference because the police have so much information and that just isn't available to the public. Whereas a missing person, I think you can make a difference, even if it's just raising awareness, even if it's just keeping their name out there, keeping people thinking about that case. It does make a difference. So anyway, long-winded answer, but that's why. Yeah, they were good cops. Yeah. They did the right thing. Yeah, Summer Wells. I mean, Summer Wells hasn't been so fortunate that, you know, the police, law enforcement around Hawkins County are not brilliant, are they? Who was on the video getting in her car? I'm assuming that you mean Letecia. Gannon was seen on the surveillance video getting in Letecia's car, but then you don't see him coming back. I mean, you kind of see a little shadow that the police believe is Gannon, but it's on the opposite side of the car. So the surveillance video is a few doors away, so it's not entirely clear, but you do see Gannon. Wow. Wow. Went missing for over a year. Found him near old houses. He'd been living on the streets. Wow. That could easily have happened to my brother. Easily. Like, why he'd gone to Inverness? He'd got on a train and gone to Inverness. Why? There was no connection to Inverness for him. He'd just got on a train and gone to the end of the line, I think. So where he would have gone from there had he not been picked up, I mean, who knows? He could have gone anywhere. Yeah, she did. She did. She drugged him with hydrocodone. So there was burning. I believe that burning was intentional. I think she gaslighted Gannon. She drugged him. She stabbed him. She hit him to cause blunt force trauma, and she shot him. I mean, it doesn't get more evil than that to an 11-year-old boy. So I can't wait to see what the defense do. I can't wait to see what case the defense bring. But anyway, that's all I kind of wanted to talk about, really, that I was just really interested in the fact that they've got this evaluation that they want to analyze, the prosecution want to analyze, to show that she's a malingerer. Yeah, so do I. So do I. I think of the 3 cases that are going on at the moment, I'm most nervous about the West case. That they don't have enough. But I haven't been following the West case as closely as I would have liked to. It's annoying that you know, there's a live feed, then you can listen to the audio, but you're not allowed to record it or stream it. So nobody's playing it because nobody can play it. You know, it's contempt of court. So unless you actually catch it live, then you can't go back and listen to it again. Yeah, the case is weak. From what I've seen, the West case is the one that I'm most concerned about. I think Letecia, I think the jury will find her guilty, regardless of the nonsense. Valor, I think he's going down. But the West, I'm concerned about that case. Anyway, guys, I'm going to go. What time? It's nearly 8 o'clock. It's nearly 8 o'clock in the AM for me. So I might take these dogs out and then catch another hour or 2 of sleep. I think that might be my plan. So, yeah. So I hope you found this useful. And for those watching on the replay, hope you found it useful. And I shall say goodbye. So thank you so much to the moderators. As always, Trixie Star was right in there at the beginning. Thank you for keeping the chat respectful. Thank you for the donations. Welcome to the new members. I'm sorry if I missed anyone's donations. Sometimes they don't come up on StreamYard, and then I've got YouTube over here, and sometimes I don't watch YouTube. Oh, it's just all confusing. I'm just like, I don't know. Inattentive, I think is the word. All right, guys. I'll catch you very soon. See you later. Bye-bye.